Shalom, shalom. Israel's brothers Abayala coming back at you with another cold cut. I'd like to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. 15 days to Passover. Lord willing, we keep these videos rolling, continue to exhort Israel through the Spirit. Right, it's going to be a quick cold cut, just going into circumcising your heart, especially before Passover. We have to circumcise our minds, especially before Passover. Let's get the law. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 10, and verse number 16. And it says, Deuteronomy 10 and 16, circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, right, your mind, and be no more stiff-necked, right? So what does it mean to circumcise the foreskin of your heart? To cut off the old and dead and waste things, man. When you circumcise, your son on the 8th day, you're cutting off the foreskin, right? And essentially you kind of just throw that away, man. You don't, you're circumcising that. You're cutting that off. You're cutting off the old things, man. In spirit, we have to cut off those old things. We have to cut off things that how we used to think, how we used to act, right? Those old sins that you cleaved unto in your hand. You have to let those things go. The Lord says, circumcise therefore your mind, right? Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked, right? And guess what? Don't do the things you used to do. Learn now. Follow directions like Yahweh Shah did. Let's go to Colossians 2 and 11. Go to the book of Colossians, chapter 2 and verse 11, right? And it says, in whom also you are circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, and putting off the body of the sins of the flesh. So now when we circumcise our hearts, we're putting off the body of the sins of the flesh. We're thinking different. Then we start moving different, right? By the circumcision of Hamashiach. The only way we can circumcise our heart is through Yahushua Mashiach. So leading up to this Passover, our minds have to be focused on the Lord. We have to deny the flesh. We have to put off the sins of the filth of the flesh, man. We have to put away idolatry, covetousness, fornication, adultery. If you had a weed demon, we got to put away all. You got a drunkard demon, tail bearing, doesn't matter. We have to put off the sins of the flesh as best as we can in heart. Right? And that's what it means to circumcise, therefore, your heart, as the Lord said. Let's get the book of Jeremiah 9 and 25. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse 25. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord. This is going to explain the reason why we have to circumcise, the foreskin of our heart, especially our people. You blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, you Israelites, we have to circumcise the foreskin of our heart, because the Lord said what? Salaki, verse 25, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will punish all them which are circumcised with the uncircumcised, talking about physically circumcised, right? And physically uncircumcised. But what? Verse 26, Egypt and Judah and Edom and the children of Ammon and Moab, right? So the heathen nations, of course, are going to get destroyed. But what? And all that are in the utmost corners that dwell in the wilderness, for all these nations are uncircumcised. So all those nations that the Lord named them heathen nations, they're physically and spiritually uncircumcised. But what about Israel, right? And all the house of Israel are uncircumcised in the heart. So it's not even just that if you uncircumcised in the flesh, because you read Isaiah 56, the Lord have mercy on you, right? But if you uncircumcised in the heart, the Lord's going to kill you with those that are uncircumcised physically as well. You're going to die next to the heathen. If you don't cut off the foreskin of your mind, you're going to lay in a grave next to an Edomite, next to a Moabite. You're going to lay in a grave next to an East Indian, man, in that weird accent, right? That nasty accent that they got. And all of these. So the Lord's not playing around if you're not circumcising the foreskin of your heart. You're still thinking like these damn Gentiles, man. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 5. You don't want to lay in the grave next to a Canaanite, an Egyptian. It's the book of Ephesians. Right? It's Ephesians chapter 5. Let's see if this is what I want. Let's see if this is what I want. Ephesians chapter 4, This is Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 17. This I say, therefore, and testify in the Lord, that you henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk in the vanity of their mind. So if you don't uncircumcise the foreskin of your mind, you're walking like a Gentile in mind. And you're going to die with the Gentile that walks in lasciviousness and pleasure, right? It says, having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of the Most High, life of God, through the ignorance that is in them because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feeling, having given themselves over unto lasciviousness, to work all uncleanness with greediness. And that's what you're going to end up doing if you don't circumcise the foreskin of your heart. If you make it to this Passover, that's mercy from the Lord. Don't abuse that mercy by coming to the Passover still thinking like how you were thinking 8 months ago. You still got that same mindset 8 months ago. You have to grow in your mind, and you have to grow up in the Lord. It's going to take, actually, let's jump back to Ephesians chapter 5, and let's start at verse. The Lord said we got to grow up into him. See if this is what I want. Come, we gonna get that. Let me read on. And it says, who being past feeling have given themselves over unto lasciviousness, right? Verse 19, to work all uncleanness with greediness. But you have not so learned Hamashiach, right? If so be that you have heard him and have been taught by him as the truth is in Yahushai, that you put off concerning the former conversation, the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lust. And that's what it means, right? To circumcise the foreskin of your mind is doing what? You're putting off that old man. But the first thing you have to do is learn Yahushua. Right? Let me jump down to verse 14. That we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive. So you can't be no more a child in your understanding, a child in how you think. Because that old man, when you were living like that old man, you were living like a child. You were doing childish things. You were doing youthful lusts, as it says in 2 Timothy chapter 2. These are all childlike behaviors because you had a childlike understanding. But what the Lord say in verse 15? But what do we have to do? But speaking the truth in love may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Hamashiach. So all goes back to Yahushua and Mashiach, and we have to grow up into all things through the Lord. So coming to this Passover, our minds have to be circumcised through Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushua. Let's go to Jeremiah 4:4. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 4, and verse number 4. And it says, Jeremiah chapter 4 and verse 4, circumcise yourselves to the Lord and take away the foreskins of your heart, you men of Judah. See, this is not a new concept. This is in the law, right? It's in the prophets. The Lord said he's been saying to circumcise the foreskins of your mind, right? You men of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem, lest my fury come forth like fire and burn that none can quench it because of the evil of your doings. So when you change your mind, you change your doings. The evil of your doings is going to be the fruit of what you think. It's Matthew chapter 7, right? But we have to understand, if we want to change how we move and change how we act, we have to change our mind. And that starts with cutting off that old man, cutting off the old way to how we think, circumcising or being spiritually circumcised, right, in your mind. Let's go to Romans chapter 2. Right? Let's get the book of Romans chapter 2. And we're going to start at verse number 25. For if circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. You have jakes in the world, that were circumcised at birth. Right? You were probably circumcised at birth. You probably wasn't in the truth when you were born. You had to learn this, right? But just because you are circumcised, that doesn't mean you can't be destroyed, right? Because what? If you break the law, then your circumcision doesn't mean anything. It's going to tell you that. Verse 26, therefore, if the righteousness, right, hold on, it's like thy circumcision is made uncircumcision, right? So your circumcision, it doesn't matter at that point. Verse 26, therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? Going back to Isaiah 56, right? Right. So if you keep the law and you physically uncircumcised, that uncircumcision will be made circumcision because the Lord will accept you. right? Because you circumcised your mind. Verse 27, and shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision doest transgress the law? Right, by the letter and circumcision, you transgress the law. But guess what? That man that was circumcised by nature, circumcised his mind, he may be uncircumcised in the flesh. He can correct a man that grew up in the law, right? Has his flesh circumcised, but his mind is still uncircumcised. So that man who's physically uncircumcised can judge that man that's physically circumcised because his mind is circumcised, his mind's not, if you can understand. So Paul saying, hey, look, he can judge you. Verse 28, for he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. Right, yeah, because you may be physically circumcised and you may put on a facade as if you're an Israelite, but it's all about in here. See, it doesn't matter if you just born an Israelite. Not all Israel is Israel. Paul told you that in Romans chapter 9. So you have to have your mind circumcised. That's inwardly. It's not, you know what I'm saying? There's billions of Israelites on the earth. The Lord's only taking a remnant. The remnant of those that circumcise their mind. Right? Verse 29. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly. And circumcision is that of the heart in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of God. Yeah, because you can, I'm physically circumcised, and you got the longest fringes, got the longest beard, and, your head wrap is the brightest, and your dress, is the most wonderfulest dress. But at the end of the day, it's all about in your heart and your mind. Have you changed your mindset, right? Have you done the things and put off the old conversation, the former man? That's what matters. And then, obviously it will show forth in the flesh when you keep the law. But it's not about how you look to men, how you appear to men, but how you appear unto Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua. And with that, I'd like to give all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua and be the mighty strong. Shalom.